They told us Captain Callahan died a hero. For 3 years, I believed them. I carried her dog tags in my pack on every mission. I told her sister she'd saved my life. I stood at attention when they folded that flag. Then one night in Chicago, my dog proved me wrong. My name is Cord Braddock, Lieutenant Navy SEAL
Hey,
Team
buddy,
Phantom.
I'm so glad
What
you're
I'm
here.
about to tell you, most of it's
You're the
still
best medicine.
classified, but some stories are too important to stay buried.
Where's the device?
This is one of
I
them.
don't know what
The
you're
rain
talking
hit
about.
Chicago like
The dog
bullets
says
that Friday
otherwise.
night.
Get that
Cold,
thing away!
Relentless. The kind that soaked through Kevlar and made you question every choice that brought you to that moment. I was bleeding out in the back of an ambulance, and all I could think about was my dog. Hold on, boy, I managed through clenched teeth. We've been through worse. Havoc pressed his muzzle against my hand. 6 years old, German Shepherd, black and tan coat matted with rain in my blood. He'd taken shrapnel in Kandahar, a knife slash in Yemen, and still had the best nose in the unit. The scar across his left flank was from the same explosion that should have killed us both. Should have. That word haunted me. The paramedic worked fast, hands steady, despite the ambulance rocking through traffic. Gunshot wound, lower abdomen, entry, no exit, BP dropping. We need to move. I'd been hit before. You don't do 12 years as a SEAL without collecting scars. But this one felt different, heavier, like maybe my luck had finally run out. Havoc whined low in his throat. Not pain, warning. Easy, I told him, just the siren. But he knew better than I did. He always did. St. Augustine Hospital rose out of the rain like a fortress. Gray concrete, too many windows. The kind of place where people went in broken and came out changed. I'd avoided hospitals since Syria, since the night that ended Team Phantom. Since the night Captain Reese Callahan died saving my life. The ambulance bay doors exploded inward. Fluorescent lights, voices colliding. That controlled chaos that only happens when blood meets time pressure. They transferred me to a gurney, straps tight across my chest. Havoc stayed glued to my side muscles, coiled eyes tracking every hand that reached too close. Trauma Bay 3, someone shouted. GSW to the abdomen. BP unstable but holding. The ceiling tiles blurred past. White. Stained. Counting them kept my mind off the fire spreading through my gut. Havoc's claws clicked on linoleum, keeping pace. They tried to separate us at the door. Big mistake. 100 pounds of trained combat dog doesn't ask permission. Sir, the animal can't. He's military, the paramedic cut in. K9 unit. Leave him. Smart man. The ER was packed. Friday night in Chicago meant knife wounds and overdoses and all the ways humans found to hurt each other. Nurses moved with purpose. Doctors barked orders. Somewhere a child cried. Monitors beeped their digital symphony of hearts that were still fighting. And in the corner, half hidden by a supply cart, stood a woman I'd buried 3 years ago. She wore light blue scrubs, blonde hair pulled back tight, not a strand out of place. Rookie badge clipped, slightly crooked to her chest. She stood perfectly still, the kind of stillness that comes from training, from learning to disappear in plain sight. I didn't recognize her, not at first, but Havoc did. It started subtle, his head lifted, nostrils flaring, then his ears snapped forward, laser-focused on something no human could sense. A low sound crawled out of his chest. Deep, primal, wrong, easy boy, I said, pain making my voice rough. What is it? Then he exploded. Sharp barks tore through the ER, violent and desperate. He yanked against the handler's grip so hard the gurney jerked to a halt. Claws scraped tile. Every head turned. Easy. I snapped, trying to sit up. Stand down. He didn't even glance back. He tore free and bolted straight across the ER, past doctors, past security, past everyone who tried to grab him. He moved with absolute purpose, nose low, locking onto something invisible. He stopped in front of the woman by the supply cart. She didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't step back. Havoc sat, slow, deliberate. Then he raised his right paw. A salute. The hallway froze, monitors kept beeping. Someone dropped a metal tray. The clang echoed like a gunshot. A security guard halfway through reaching for his taser just stared. What the hell, a resident whispered. I fought the straps. Fury burning hotter than the bullet in my gut. Get back here, that's an order. Havoc didn't budge. He held that salute-perfect posture, eyes locked on the woman. I ripped myself free. Combat boots hit the floor unevenly. My vision grayed at the edges, but rage carried me when my body couldn't. I shoved past a medic, breathing hard, eyes locked on my dog and the stranger behind him. Get away from him, I snarled. The woman lifted her face, the words died in my throat. Color drained from my skin so fast I felt it like Someone pulled a plug and let everything pour out. My breath hitched once, twice, then came shallow and desperate. I stumbled back, shoulder hitting the wall, and stared at a ghost. No, I whispered. The hallway leaned in, every sound muted, every light too bright. No, that's not possible. But those eyes, ice blue, the same eyes that had looked at me across a burning compound and given the order that saved my life and ended hers. Captain Callahan. The words felt foreign, wrong, like speaking a dead language. She stood there, this woman in civilian scrubs, and for just a second the mask slipped. Recognition. Pain. Something deeper than either. Team Phantom is long gone, I said, voice breaking around each word. We were wiped. Every name crossed out. Every file burned. My gaze searched her face like it might blur or fade if I blinked too hard. Who the hell are you? She didn't answer. That was the first thing that unsettled the doctors. Not her silence, but her stillness. She didn't rush to explain. Didn't deny anything. She just knelt slow and steady until she was level with Havoc. Her hand came up. Calm. Open. It rested lightly against his neck, right over the scar from the shrapnel I'd seen her pull out with her bare hands, while mortars rained down around us. The growl vanished. Havoc leaned into her touch, like he'd been waiting 3 years for it. Easy, she murmured. Not a command, a memory. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall to sitting, hands shaking now. The anger drained away, replaced by something raw and exposed and terrifying. You're dead, I said hoarsely. They told us you were dead. They showed us the satellite footage. The compound collapsed. There was no way. They tell people a lot of things, she said quietly. Her voice. Christ, I'd heard that voice in my nightmares for 3 years. Calm, certain. The voice that had talked me through my first firefight. The voice that had said, get to the bird, while blood soaked through her vest. A charge nurse finally found her voice. Security we need. No. One of the trauma surgeons snapped without looking away. Gray-haired, sharp eyes. He stared at the scene like he was watching something classified unfold. Nobody touches that dog. Smart man. The woman's fingers moved to Havoc's injured leg. The old wound that still made him limp on cold days. She didn't reach for equipment. Didn't call for help. She assessed the damage with her hands and eyes alone the way people did when tools weren't an option, and improvisation meant the difference between life and death. Havoc didn't flinch. Didn't growl. He trusted her completely. How does she, a resident began? I laughed once. Broken, humorless. Because she's the reason this dog made it out alive. That turned heads. You trained him. How saw him? The doctor asked. No. I said, still staring at her, like she might vanish. She saved him. 3 years ago, Syria, our last mission before everything went to hell. We'd been pinned down in a weapons depot taking fire from 3 sides. Havoc had charged ahead doing what he was trained to do, detect alert attack. He'd found the IED before any of us, but the shrapnel from the blast had torn through his side and he'd gone down hard. I'd tried to reach him. Captain Callahan had beaten me there. She'd run through gunfire, dropped to her knees beside a 100-pound dog, bleeding out, and pulled metal fragments from his flesh with her fingers while I provided cover. When I'd screamed that we needed to move, she'd looked up with those ice blue eyes and said 3 words, not without him. We'd carried Havoc between us to the extraction point, all of us bleeding, all of us convinced we'd die there. We almost did. The woman Reese, my mind finally accepted. Captain Reese, Callahan finished wrapping Havoc's leg. She tied off the bandage, clean and tight field medicine done with civilian supplies. She gave him a soft nod. Only then did he look back at me. Slowly, reluctantly. He stood and returned, never taking his eyes off her. I wiped at my face with the heel of my hand, embarrassed by the tears I hadn't felt coming. The pain in my gut felt distant, now secondary to the impossibility standing 10 feet away. I watched you bleed out, I said quietly. You pushed us onto that helicopter, told me not to look back. Reese stood. The hallway felt smaller, closer. And you didn't, she said. I followed orders, I said. I hated myself for it. Her jaw tightened. That's why you're alive. A heavy silence settled over the ER, not awkward, reverent. Like everyone present sensed they were witnessing something bigger than a Friday night trauma case. The gray-haired surgeon finally spoke. What happened to Team Phantom? I shook my head slowly. Classified, then erased. My eyes found Reese again. We don't exist on paper anymore, I paused. Neither does she. Security radios crackled. Someone whispered about calling administration. Someone else mentioned the military. Reese didn't react. She pulled off her gloves, dropped them in a biohazard bin, and stepped back toward the wall, right back into that thin strip of space where everyone had ignored her. But the room wouldn't let her disappear now. I pushed myself to my feet despite the pain, stood straighter than I should have been able to, and faced her fully. My voice trembled, but it carried. "My dog doesn't salute strangers," I said. "He only salutes command." Reese didn't answer. I took a shaky breath. "So why does he think you outrank the grave?" The attending physician, the gray-haired surgeon, stepped forward. "Sir, we need to move forward with treatment. Now, oh." He paused. His eyes flicked to Reese despite himself. "You should probably stay." That was new, unprecedented. Nurses didn't just get invited into trauma cases, but something in his voice said he understood there were layers here deeper than hospital protocol. Reese nodded once. Not gratitude, acknowledgement. She moved back toward the gurney, hands calm, eyes focused. Havoc watched every step she took, tail still, ears alert, body angled between her and anyone else who came too close. I let them guide me back onto the stretcher. The adrenaline was wearing off now. The pain rushed back in, hot and insistent. I gritted my teeth. "What's the dog's name?" Reese asked softly, checking the wrap she'd placed on his leg. "Havoc," I managed. She almost smiled. Fitting. Her fingers moved with practiced certainty, adjusting pressure by instinct rather than protocol. The way someone moved when they'd done field medicine in places where hesitation cost lives. "You didn't ask permission," the surgeon noted, more curious than accusatory. Reese didn't look up. He didn't need permission. He needed help. That answer landed heavier than it should have. The surgeon, his badge said, "Dr. Kane." "No." First name studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded to the team. "Let's get him stabilized. Prep for surgery. Possible liver involvement." They moved efficiently. IV lines, blood pressure cuff, oxygen monitor, the familiar rhythm of emergency medicine. But the whispers had started, low, speculative, edged with disbelief. Someone pulled out their phone, typed Team Phantom into Google. Found nothing. Tried Navy SEAL erased units. Still nothing. When a military unit got truly buried, it stayed buried. "Where did you learn to work like that?" Dr. Kane finally asked Reese. She paused just long enough to acknowledge the question. "Places where hesitation costs lives." I let out a short, bitter laugh despite the pain. "She means places where backup never came." That shut the room up. As the medication took hold, as the sharp edges of pain dulled enough to loosen my guard, I found myself staring at the ceiling again, counting tiles, trying to make sense of impossible things. "They told us you didn't make it," I said, voice dropping. "That you went down covering our exfil." Reese's jaw tightened. I caught it even through the haze. "They told you what they needed you to believe." "So you just walked away?" I asked, not accusing, trying to understand. She finished as securing a line finally met my eyes. I walked forward, just not in uniform. Havoc shifted, pressed closer to her leg. His tail brushed her scrub pants like muscle memory, like coming home. Security hovered at the edges of the hallway, uncertain now. This wasn't a threat situation. This was something else. Something they didn't have a protocol for, something that required a different kind of response. The charge nurse pulled Dr. Kane aside. Urgent whispers. Administration had been notified. Questions were coming, big ones. "Ma'am," I said suddenly louder, drawing attention back. "You never liked being called that." A few heads snapped toward me. Reese exhaled slowly. "Old habits. Old ghosts," I corrected. "Doctor." Kane returned face tight. "Hospital policy requires we report." Reese held up a hand, not disrespectful, controlled. "Let me finish stabilizing him. Then I'll step out." Kane hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. That was another first. In 12 years of military service, I'd learned to read power dynamics. Dr. Kane had just deferred to a rookie nurse, not because of protocol, because of presence. As the team worked, I watched Reese the way you watched landmarks you thought had been wiped off the map. My chest rose and fell too fast, adrenaline fighting pain, memory clawing its way back to the surface. "You saved Havoc back then," I said quietly. "Pulled shrapnel out with your bare hands while mortars fell. You remember? I did my job. You did more than that." I insisted, needing her to hear it. "You named him." That made her still. Havoc's ears flicked at the sound of his name. "You said he needed something to answer to," I continued. "Something solid. Something that meant he belonged." Reese swallowed once. He needed a reason to come back. Silence stretched again, thick and weighted, heavy with all the things we weren't saying, with 3 years of grief and guilt and questions that had no good answers. Outside the trauma bay, footsteps echoed, measured, purposeful, not rushed like doctors, not hesitant like security. Someone who expected doors to open when they arrived. Dr. Kane stiffened. That'll be administration. Reese finished taping the last line, then stepped back. He's stable. I caught her wrist before she could retreat. Not hard, grounding. Don't let them disappear you again. She met my gaze, really met it, and I saw everything she'd been carrying for 3 years. The weight of it, the cost of surviving when everyone thought you were dead. I'm not running, she said. The doors opened. A man in a tailored suit stepped in, late 50s, silver hair, eyes sharp as surgical steel. Behind him, two others, hospital executives, badges gleaming, the kind of people who dealt in liability and paperwork, not blood and trauma. What's going on here? The lead administrator demanded. His voice carried authority, but not the kind that mattered in this room. Nobody answered right away. I spoke first. This nurse saved my life and my dog's. The administrator's eyes narrowed. Sir, with all due respect, with none, I cut in. My voice came out harder than I'd intended, pain and fury making it sharp. You don't get to talk until you listen. That stunned them. You could see it in their faces. The recalculation, the sudden awareness that this wasn't a routine incident. Reese gently freed her wrist, stepped forward. I broke protocol, she said evenly. The administrator seized on that. Then you understand the consequences. I understand responsibility, Reese replied. There's a difference. The administrator looked ready to argue. Then Havoc stood, steady despite the limp. He moved between Reese and the suits, not aggressive, protective, a barrier silent and absolute. Nobody tried to move him. That dog was trained to guard command, I said, voice dropping low. Dangerous now. He doesn't choose wrong. The administrator hesitated. His eyes moved between Havoc, Reese, me, and Dr. Kane, calculating, weighing options. Whatever he saw made him reconsider. Who are you people? He finally asked. Reese answered before I could. People who don't show up on your charts. For a moment, it looked like she might actually be escorted out. Security shifted closer, hands on belts. The room held its breath. Then I spoke again, quieter, but it carried. If she leaves, I leave, and I promise you won't like the paperwork that follows. The administrator studied me. Military bearing was hard to hide, even bleeding on a gurney. He saw it, recognized it, made his choice. We'll discuss this later, he said, turning to Reese. I'll be here, she replied. The executives withdrew, dignity dented but intact. As the tension eased, as the normal sounds of the ER filtered back in, Dr. Kane let out a long breath. You just rewrote my understanding of rookie, he said to Reese. She gave a small, tired smile. Words don't always mean what you think. They prepped me for transport to surgery. The medication was pulling me under now, soft and inevitable. But I fought it, needing to see her, needing to know this wasn't a morphine dream. They called you a ghost, I murmured, as my eyes drifted closed. Guess they were wrong. Reese looked at Havoc, then back at me. Ghosts don't leave footprints, she said. That was the last thing I heard before the darkness took me. Her voice, steady, real, alive. As the surgical lights blazed overhead, as Dr. Kane made the first incision, as my world narrowed to nothing but heartbeat and breath, one thought remained crystal clear. I'd spent 3 years grieving a woman who never died. Now I had to figure out why someone wanted us to think she had, and why after all this time that same someone might want to finish what they started. The surgery took 4 hours. Dr. Kane removed the bullet lodged 2 millimeters from my liver. Clean extraction, he told me later. Professional work. The kind of precision that came from years of cutting into bodies and putting them back together. I woke up in recovery with Havoc's chin resting on the edge of my bed. Hey boy, I whispered. My throat felt like sandpaper. He lifted his head. Those amber eyes studied me with an intelligence that still caught me off guard after 6 years together. His tail thumped once against the floor. Approval. Relief. Where is she? I asked. Havoc's ears swiveled toward the door. Of course he knew who I meant. The recovery room was quiet, dim lighting, the soft beep of monitors tracking my heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation. All the digital proof that I was still alive. Through the small window in the door, I could see nurses moving past. Clipboards, tablets, the midnight shift settling into its rhythm. But no Reese. I closed my eyes, tried to separate reality from the morphine haze. Had I actually seen her? Had Havoc really saluted a woman who was supposed to be 3 years dead? Or had blood loss and trauma conjured ghosts from my guilt? Then Havoc growled, low, directed, the sound he made when he detected a threat before I could see it. Two men appeared in the doorway, dress shirts, no jackets despite the November cold. The kind of plainclothes that screamed federal agent louder than any badge. Lieutenant Braddock, the first one said, 40-something, crew cut going gray. I'm Agent Keller, this is Agent Park. We need to ask you some questions. I didn't sit up, didn't change my expression. About what? About the woman who treated your K9 in the ER. So it had been real. She's a nurse, I said carefully. I don't know her name. Agent Park stepped forward, early 40s, sharp eyes that had seen too much loss. Lines around her mouth that came from holding grief too long. We pulled the security footage, Lieutenant. Your dog recognized her. That's not standard behavior for a military working dog. Havoc's full of surprises. Keller pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, turned it toward me. The image showed Reese in her scrubs kneeling beside Havoc. The angle caught her profile, the controlled stillness that came from years of tactical training. Her employee file says Maya Cole, Keller said. Started here 8 months ago. Impeccable references. Spotless background check. But here's the interesting part. He swiped to another image, a grainier photo, tactical gear, desert camouflage. A woman with the same bone structure, the same controlled presence standing beside a compound wall. The timestamp read 3 years ago. That's Captain Reese Callahan, Keller continued. Navy SEAL, Team Phantom, killed in action during a classified operation in Syria. I kept my face neutral. Years of interrogation resistance training kicked in automatically. So you're saying my nurse is a dead woman? We're saying someone went to a lot of trouble to create a new identity, and we'd like to know why. Park moved closer to the bed. Her voice dropped, more personal now. 4 members of Team Phantom have died in the past 2 years, Lieutenant. All ruled accidental. Car crash, house fire, hiking accident, overdose. She paused, let that sink in. That's a lot of bad luck for one unit. My pulse kicked up. The monitor betrayed me with a faster beep. My husband was FBI, Park continued quietly. Agent David Park. 2 years ago, he was investigating defense contractor corruption, weapons trafficking, money laundering. He found connections to deceased military personnel whose deaths were ruled accidental. Her jaw tightened. 3 days before he was scheduled to testify to a grand jury, his car went off a bridge. Single vehicle accident. Clear day. No mechanical failures found. I understood now. This wasn't just an investigation. It was personal. What do you want from me? I asked. The truth, Keller said simply. Is that woman Captain Callahan? I thought about Reese's words in the ER. They tell people a lot of things. Thought about the way she'd moved, the way she'd assessed Havoc's injury with the precision of someone who'd done field medicine under fire. Thought about 4 dead teammates and an FBI agent who'd gotten too close to the truth. Thought about the fact that if I confirmed her identity, I might be signing her death warrant, or I might be giving her the allies she needed. I was on a lot of morphine, I said finally. I thought I saw someone I used to know, but that person's dead, so I must have been mistaken. Park's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes said she understood what I wasn't saying. I see. Well, if you remember anything else. She placed a card on the bedside table. Her personal cell number was written on the back. Call me, day or night. They left without another word. Havoc watched them go, didn't relax until their footsteps faded down the hallway. I exhaled slowly, stared at the ceiling, counted tiles again, trying to make sense of pieces that didn't quite fit. Somewhere in this hospital, Reese Callahan was hiding in plain sight. 4 members of Team Phantom were dead. An FBI agent had been murdered investigating the same conspiracy. And federal agents were asking questions that could either help us or get us killed. The pieces were there. I just couldn't see the full picture yet. The door opened again. I tensed, expecting the agents to return. Instead, Dr. Kane stepped in. He looked older in the dim light, tired, the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying secrets too heavy for one person. He closed the door behind him and stood there for a moment, just breathing. You lied to them, he said quietly. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Kane moved to the window, looked out at the Chicago skyline. Rain still fell, streaking the glass. I was in the military too, long time ago. Different war, different uniform. But I know what classified looks like, and I know what ghosts look like when they're standing right in front of you. I waited. Kane turned. 23 years ago, I wasn't a surgeon. I was a field medic, Army, then CIA. I ran medical operations for black site extractions across 3 continents: Yemen, Somalia, Afghanistan, Syria. He paused. I know Captain Callahan because I was her handler. One of them, anyway. The monitor beeped faster. 3 years ago, Kane continued, I got the order to facilitate her death. Not actually kill her, just make it look convincing enough that everyone would stop looking. New identity, new credentials, new life. Permanent extraction from the field. Why? Because Team Phantom stumbled onto something they weren't supposed to find, and someone very powerful decided it was easier to erase the whole unit than risk the truth getting out. I pushed myself up despite the pain shooting through my abdomen. The stitches pulled but held. What truth? Kane's jaw tightened. Weapons trafficking, U.S. military-grade equipment being sold to insurgent groups through a black market network. The kind of operation that requires cooperation at the highest levels. Pentagon procurement, defense contractors, intelligence community oversight. My blood went cold. We found a depot full of American weapons in Syria, M4s, AT-4s, Stinger missiles, all with serial numbers traced back to our own supply chain. Captain Callahan photographed everything, documented the whole thing. She reported it up the chain of command. And 12 hours later, Kane finished, that compound was hit with an airstrike. Officially, it was an enemy position. High-value target. Collateral damage. Team Phantom got caught in the crossfire conducting a separate operation nearby. He met my eyes. Unofficially, someone gave the order to eliminate everyone who knew about those weapons. But 8 of us made it out. Kane nodded slowly. 8 witnesses. 8 problems that needed solving. Captain Callahan saw what was coming. She'd already started gathering evidence before the strike. Banking records, manifests, wire transfers. When I pulled her out of that rubble, barely alive, broken ribs and a punctured lung, she made me promise 2 things. His voice dropped. 1, make sure you and the others got out safely. 2, keep her death convincing enough that whoever ordered the hit would think the job was done. And you've been hiding her for 3 years. I gave her the tools to hide herself, Kane corrected. New identity, medical credentials that would pass any background check. A life where she could disappear into the civilian world and keep gathering evidence. His expression darkened. But now you've shown up, with that dog, and federal agents are already asking questions. Havoc's ears pricked forward. He stood, moved to the door. Someone was coming. The door opened. Reese stepped in, still in her scrubs. She looked at Kane, at me, at Havoc, who immediately moved to her side. They know, she said simply. Kane's shoulders sagged. How much? Enough to be asking the right questions. Keller's running deep background checks on Maya Cole. He'll find the seams eventually. The places where my identity was stitched together. Reese pulled out her phone, showed us a news alert, and we have a bigger problem. The headline read, Former Navy SEAL found dead in apparent suicide. The photo showed a man I recognized, Lieutenant Marcus Jenner, Team Phantom, the best sniper I'd ever worked with. He'd made it out of Syria with burns covering 40% of his body, face reconstructed with skin grafts and metal plates. I'd visited him once during his recovery, watched him fight through the pain with the same determination that had made him a SEAL. Marcus Jenner didn't quit, and he sure as hell wouldn't eat his own gun. When did this happen? Kane asked. According to the timestamp, 6 hours ago. Body found in his apartment. Single gunshot to the head. Service weapon. Reese's jaw tightened. Except Marcus Jenner called me 4 hours ago. I sat up, fully ignoring the pain. What? He's alive. The body they found wasn't his, it was staged. She swiped to another image. Blurry security footage. A man with burn scars walking with a cane entering a Greyhound bus station. He went underground 2 months ago when he realized someone was hunting survivors. He's been moving between cities, gathering his own evidence, building his own case. Kane leaned forward. Where is he now? On his way here. He should arrive within the hour. Reese met my eyes. He knows about the weapons depot. He was there when we found the ledger. His testimony combined with mine, combined with the evidence we've both gathered, will be irrefutable. If he makes it here alive, Kane said quietly. He will, Reese said with certainty. Marcus survived 40% burns and 2 years of reconstructive surgery. He's not dying in a bus station. Park's voice came from the doorway. No, but he might die in a hospital if we're not careful. We all turned. Agent Park stood there, weapon holstered, but hand near it. Keller beside her. They'd come back. Quiet. Professional. How much did you hear? Reese asked. No fear in her voice, just calculation. Enough, Park said. Enough to know you're Captain Callahan. Enough to know Lieutenant Jenner faked his death. Enough to know there's a conspiracy that got my husband killed. She stepped into the room. And enough to know I want to help. Keller held up his hands. We're not here to arrest anyone. We're here because Agent Park has been investigating Voss Security Solutions for 2 years. And because I've been investigating the deaths of 4 military personnel whose accidents all had the same forensic signature. Voss, I said. Park nodded. Garrett Voss, retired colonel, now CEO of one of the largest private defense contractors in the country. Annual revenue approaching $4 billion. Contracts with the Pentagon State Department, OMIA. He has security clearances most congressmen don't have. He was our commanding officer, Reese said flatly. He ran the weapons trafficking network we discovered. And when we found his ledger in that Syrian depot, he made a choice. Sacrifice one SEAL team or risk exposure that would destroy his empire and send him to prison. He chose you, Park said, then spent 3 years cleaning up the survivors. Keller pulled out his tablet again. Staff Sergeant Sarah Chen, car crash rural Montana, SUV rolled off a mountain road. No witnesses, ruled accidental. Corporal Miguel Rodriguez, house fire San Diego, electrical short in the kitchen, body identified through dental records, ruled accidental. Petty Officer David Kim, hiking accident Olympic National Park, fell from a cliff, body found 3 days later, ruled accidental. Specialist Jennifer Watts, drug overdose Atlanta, fentanyl-laced heroin, history of PTSD and painkiller use, ruled accidental. Each name hit like a bullet. Teammates, friends, people I'd bled with and trusted with my life. All dead, all within 2 years. All ruled accidents. That's 4, I said. There were 8 of us who made it out of Syria. 5, Kane corrected quietly. Captain Callahan, Hugh Jenner, and 2 others. Lieutenant Amy Reeves and Sergeant First Class Thomas Quinn. Where are they? Reese demanded. Keller's expression was grim. We don't know. Both went off-grid 8 months ago. No credit card use, no phone activity, no contact with family. Either they're hiding very well or... He didn't need to finish. Park moved closer. We think Voss has been using contractors to eliminate witnesses. Professional killers staged his accidents. He's got the money, the connections, and the motivation. But we can't prove it. Every investigation hits a wall, evidence disappears, witnesses recant, files get classified. Because Voss has protection, Reese said. He's not working alone. No, Park agreed. He has partners, people in procurement who falsified inventory records, logistics officers who arranged shipments, intelligence analysts who looked the other way. And all of them have just as much to lose if the truth comes out. The room fell silent, the weight of it settling over us. We weren't just fighting one corrupt officer. We were fighting a network that had been operating for years, protected by people with power and resources we couldn't match. So what do we do? I asked. Reese looked at Kane, at Park and Keller, at me. We do what Team Phantom was trained to do. We adapt, we gather intelligence, we identify targets, and we execute the mission. What mission? Keller asked. Expose Voss, dismantle his network, get justice for our teammates. Her voice was cold now. Command voice, the captain I remembered from combat. And make sure no one else dies protecting his lie. Kane cleared his throat. There's something else you should know, the reason Agent Park and I know each other. The reason I called her when I saw the federal inquiry about Captain Callahan. Park nodded. Dr. Kane treated my husband. David was investigating defense contractor fraud when he started receiving threats. Someone ran him off the road 6 months before he died. Broke his arm. Warning shot. He came here for treatment. Dr. Kane recognized the signs of someone being hunted. I tried to convince him to go into protective custody, Kane said. He refused, said he was close to a breakthrough, that he'd identified the ringleader of the trafficking network. He paused. 2 weeks later, his car went off of that bridge. Voss, Reese said. We think so, Park replied. But we couldn't prove it. Until now, until you. A knock on the door interrupted us. A security guard peeked in. Dr. Kane, there's a man in the lobby asking for you, says it's urgent. He wouldn't give his name, but said you'd know who he was. Kane and Reese exchanged a look. Jenner, they said simultaneously. We moved quickly. Kane and Keller went to escort Jenner up. Park stayed with Reese and me. Havoc positioned himself at the door alert and ready. How bad is your injury? Park asked me. I fought in worse condition. That's not what I asked. Bad enough that I shouldn't be standing. Not bad enough to keep me sitting. I pulled the IV line from my arm, ignored the sharp sting. If Voss knows Jenner's alive, he'll send contractors. This hospital isn't secure. Agreed, Reese said. She was already moving gathering supplies from the crash cart. Bandages, saline, antibiotics. Things we'd need if we had to run. We need to move to a secure location, somewhere we can coordinate without exposing civilians. My office, Park offered. FBI field office. Secured floors. Controlled access. We can set up there. How do we get Cord out of a hospital without anyone noticing? Reese asked. Park smiled grimly. We don't. We make it look like a medical transfer. Ambulance, official paperwork. By the time anyone questions it, we'll be gone. It was a good plan, simple, quick. The kind that worked because it relied on bureaucracy and misdirection rather than force. But plans never survived contact with the enemy. The lights in the hospital flickered. Once. Twice. Then the fire alarm screamed to life. Havoc was on his feet instantly. Hackles up. That low growl that meant danger was close. That's not a drill, Reese said, already moving toward me. She pulled back the curtain. In the hallway, nurses and patients were evacuating. Orderly chaos. But through the window in the door, I saw something that made my blood freeze. A man in a dark jacket, moving against the flow of traffic. Eyes scanning room numbers. His hand inside his jacket, gripping something that created a telltale bulge. He stopped at my door, reached inside. Get down, I shouted. The window exploded inward. Gunfire, suppressed but unmistakable. 3 shots punched through the door, wood splintered, glass scattered. Reese hit the floor, pulling the bed between us and the shooter. Havoc barked once sharp and aggressive, positioning himself as a shield between the threat and his pack. Park had her weapon out. Federal agents, drop your weapon. More shots answered. The IV stand shattered. Fluid pooled across tile. Then silence. Heavy, pregnant with violence about to erupt. I looked at Reese. She looked at me. We both knew what this meant. Voss wasn't waiting. He'd sent contractors to finish the job. Professional killers who'd tracked Jenner here and decided to eliminate all the witnesses at once. And we were trapped in a hospital room with one exit and limited weapons. Reese's hand found mine. Squeezed once. Her voice was calm, steady. The voice that had kept me alive through 6 deployments. Like old times. Despite everything, I smiled. Like old times. Havoc growled agreement. Ready, willing, loyal to the end. The door handle turned slowly. Park aimed center mass. On my mark. The door exploded inward. Not from the handle. From a boot. Heavy. Tactical. 3 men poured through. Black tactical gear. Suppressed weapons. Moving with professional precision. Havoc launched himself at the lead shooter. 90 pounds of muscle and fury. The impact sent both crashing into the hallway. Jaws found flesh. The shooter screamed. Reese was already moving. She grabbed the IV stand's metal base, swung hard, connected with the second shooter's knee. I heard bone crack. He went down hard. Park fired twice. Hit the third shooter center mass. He staggered back, but his vest caught the rounds. He raised his weapon toward her. I kicked his arm. The gun clattered away. Then I was on him, years of hand-to-hand combat training taking over. Elbow to the jaw, knee to the gut. He doubled over and I brought my fist down on the back of his neck. He dropped. The hallway was chaos now. Patients screaming, staff running, and somewhere in that confusion, more shooters. Havoc had the first contractor pinned, jaws locked on his forearm. The man was trying to reach a backup weapon with his free hand. Reese got there first, kicked it away, picked up the suppressed pistol, checked the chamber. Full magazine. How many? I asked, breathing hard. The pain in my abdomen was fire now. Stitches definitely torn. Park was checking the downed shooter, found a radio clipped to his vest. At least 6. Standard contractor team, 2-man elements on each floor. A voice crackled through. Alpha team report, status on target. Park keyed the mic, lowered her voice. Target engaged, resistance heavier than expected. Requesting backup 3rd floor. Copy, Bravo team en route. She tossed the radio aside. That'll buy us maybe 2 minutes. We need to find Jenner, Reese said. If he's in the lobby. He's walking into a kill box. I finished. Keller's voice came through Park's phone. Park, we've got a situation. Armed men in the lobby. 3 shooters. They've got the exits covered. Jenner spotted them and ducked into a maintenance corridor. Kane and I are with him, but we're pinned down. Stay there, Park ordered. We're coming to you. She looked at us. Can you fight? I grabbed the first shooter's pistol, checked it. Glock 19, familiar weight. Yes, Reese already had her weapon up. Always. Then let's move. Stay tight. Watch corners. These are professionals. They won't hesitate. We headed for the stairwell. Havoc stayed close to Reese, limping slightly but functional. His training overriding pain and fear. The hospital's emergency lighting cast everything in red. Exit signs glowed. Shadows pooled in doorways. Every corner was a potential ambush. We reached the stairwell. Park went first weapon, up smooth and controlled. I followed covering our six. Reese moved between us, protecting the middle. Second floor, clear. First floor. The door to the lobby was 30 feet ahead. That's when the shooting started. Automatic fire. Multiple weapons. The distinctive crack of assault rifles echoing through concrete and steel. Park pressed against the wall. That's not suppressed fire. Someone's making a statement. Or someone's panicking, Reese said. We moved to the door. Park cracked it open. Peeked through. The lobby was a war zone. Contractors in tactical gear, trading fire with hospital security. Civilians huddled behind overturned furniture. Glass everywhere. The smell of cordite and fear. And in the middle of it, three men pinned down behind the reception desk. Kane, Keller, and a man I barely recognized through the burn scars. Marcus Jenner. We need a distraction, Park said. Something big enough to draw their attention. I looked at Reese. Fire alarm's already going. What's bigger than that? She smiled, the dangerous smile I remembered from combat. An explosion. If you're joking. I'm not. She pointed to a maintenance closet across the hall. Oxygen tanks, cleaning supplies. The right combination creates a very loud, very distracting boom. Park stared at her. You want to blow up part of the hospital? I want to save lives. Sometimes that requires property damage. Reese was already moving. Cover me. She sprinted across the hallway, made it to the closet, disappeared inside. 30 seconds later, she emerged with an oxygen tank and a bottle of industrial cleaner. This is insane, Park muttered. This is war, I corrected. Reese positioned the improvised device behind a support column, rigged it with gauze soaked in alcohol. A crude but effective delayed ignition. She lit it. 30 seconds, move. We burst through the door into the lobby. Weapons up. Park shouted, Federal agents, drop your weapons. The contractors turned. That split second of hesitation was all we needed. The oxygen tank exploded, not a fireball, more of a massive concussive boom that shook the building and blew out every window on the first floor. The contractors hit the ground. Civilians screamed. Chaos multiplied exponentially. We used the confusion. Park and I provided covering fire while Reese sprinted to the reception desk, Havoc right beside her. She grabbed Kane, then Jenner. Keller was already moving. Go, 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 I shouted. We ran for the emergency exit. Behind us, contractors were recovering, weapons coming back up, orders being shouted. But we had momentum now. And sometimes in combat, momentum was everything. We hit the exit door at full speed, burst into the parking lot, rain hammered down, Chicago night closing in around us. Park's FBI vehicle was 50 yards away. We ran for it. Gunfire chased us. Rounds sparked off concrete. A window shattered. Park returned fire. Get in. We piled into the SUV. Kane in front. The rest of us in back. Havoc on the floor between seats. Park hit the geese. Tires screamed. We fishtailed out of the lot and onto the street. Behind us, contractors poured out of the hospital. But they were too late. We were gone. For now. In the back seat, I finally got a good look at Marcus Jenner. The burn scars covered the left side of his face and neck. Skin grafts in different shades. Metal pins visible near his jaw. But his eyes were the same. Sharp. Determined. Alive. Lieutenant, he said. His voice was rough. Damaged vocal cords. Good to see you. Good to see you too, Marcus. Heard you were dead. He smiled. It pulled the scarred skin awkwardly. Heard the same about the captain. Guess we're all ghosts now. Reese sat beside him, touched his shoulder. Good to have you back, Jenner. Good to be back, ma'am. Park drove fast but controlled, taking turns that would lose any tail. After 10 minutes, she pulled into an underground parking garage, killed the lights, waited. Nothing followed. We're clear, Keller said, for now. Park looked at us in the rearview mirror. My office, 20 minutes. We planned this properly. No more improvisation. Reese nodded. Agreed. As we drove through rain-soaked Chicago streets as adrenaline faded and pain returned, I realized something. We weren't running anymore. We were hunting. And Garrett Voss had just made his first mistake. He'd shown his hand, sent contractors into a public hospital, created witnesses, left evidence. He'd panicked, and panicked men made mistakes. We just had to survive long enough to exploit them. Havoc's head rested on my leg. I scratched his ears. Good boy. You did good. His tail thumped once against the floor. Outside, Chicago glowed against the night, millions of people going about their lives, unaware that somewhere in that sprawl a war was being fought in the shadows. A war for truth, for justice, for the teammates who died believing lies. We were ghosts, the survivors of Team Phantom, officially dead, unofficially hunting, and we were coming for everyone who'd betrayed us, starting with Colonel Garrett Voss. The mission was just beginning. The door swung open. Havoc launched before my brain could catch up. 90 pounds of trained aggression meeting flesh and bone. The impact drove the gunman backward into the hallway. His suppressed pistol skittered across tiles spinning under a crash cart. Reese moved like water. Fluid. Inevitable. She grabbed the IV stand, pivoted her hips, and drove the metal base into the second shooter's knee. The sound was wet and wrong. He dropped screaming through clenched teeth. My body remembered what my mind tried to forget. I rolled off the bed despite the fire tearing through my abdomen. Stitches pulled, maybe tore. I didn't let myself check. The hallway churned with case. House. Patients in thin gowns stumbling toward exits, nurses shouting coordinates and directions, the fire alarm screaming its mechanical warning, and threading through it all, men moving with purpose, men who didn't belong. Havoc had the first shooter pinned, jaws locked on his forearm. The man reached for something at his ankle with his free hand. I kicked it away before his fingers made contact, dropped to one knee, grabbed the suppressed pistol from where it had stopped against the wall. The grip was warm from someone else's hand. The weight felt familiar in a way that made my chest tight. How many? I asked Reese. She was searching the downed man, found a radio clipped to his belt. Her fingers moved quick and certain. At least 4, could be 6. They've jammed cell signals and cut the landlines. Coordinated. Voss doesn't hire street thugs. The radio crackled. Male voice, calm, professional. Second floor secure. Third floor in progress. Target is room 314, confirm. My room. Reese looked at me. Her eyes had changed. The rookie nurse was gone. What looked back at me was the woman who'd led Team Phantom through Kandahar, through Yemen, through Syria until it all came apart. We need Kane's office, she said. 4th floor. He has a hard line to outside law enforcement. Through 6 contractors. You have a better plan. I checked the pistol, full magazine, 1 in the chamber. 16 rounds total. Not nearly enough if this went wrong. We split up. You take the service elevator, I draw them to the main stairs. You just had surgery 4 hours ago. I've fought on worse. Cord. Captain, I used her rank deliberately, made her focus. You're the objective. You have the evidence. You can bring Voss down. I paused, let that sink in. I'm expendable, you're not. Her jaw worked. She knew the tactical math, hated it, but knew it. Havoc stays with you, I said. No. He follows your orders better than mine, always has. I looked down at the dome, blood on his muzzle, eyes alert. Protect her boy. New mission. Havoc sat, raised his paw, that salute that had started everything. I touched his head, just once. Good dog. Reese grabbed my wrist, squeezed hard enough to hurt. Don't you dare die on me again, Lieutenant. Wasn't planning on it, ma'am. She disappeared down the corridor with Havoc moving silent at her heel. A ghost and her guardian. Gone before I could think too hard about what I was doing. I turned toward the main hallway, breathed through the pain. 3 years ago, I'd taken shrapnel in the same general area. The scar tissue probably saved my life tonight. Probably. I fired 3 rounds into the ceiling. Let the sound echo. Let it draw them. The radio on the downed contractor crackled. Shots fired 3rd floor west. All units respond. I smiled despite everything. Moved toward the stairwell. 2 shooters emerged from patient rooms 30 feet ahead. Tactical gear under civilian jackets. Weapons coming up smooth and practiced. I put 2 rounds center mass on the first one. He dropped. The second got his weapon up, but I was already moving. Closed the distance. Used the pistol like a club. Drove it into his temple. He went down hard. The stairwell door was heavy. Fire-rated steel. I hit it with my shoulder and nearly blacked out from the pain. But it opened. I started down. Each step sent shockwaves through my core. Felt something warm and wet spreading across my abdomen. Blood or fluid from the surgery. Either way, not good. Second floor landing, a shooter coming up. Young, maybe 25. His eyes went wide when he saw me. I shot him in the shoulder. Non-lethal. He tumbled backward down the stairs. His weapon clattered past him. Tell Voss he should have sent professionals, I called down. My voice echoed in the concrete shaft. First floor, the main lobby spread out empty and surreal. Abandoned coffee cups. Magazines scattered on waiting room chairs. The rain outside hammered glass that vibrated with each gust of wind. Red and blue lights painted the walls. Police responding to the fire alarm. But they wouldn't rush in. Not with communications down. Not until they established a perimeter and assessed the threat. We didn't have that kind of time. Someone grabbed my shoulder from behind. Training took over. I spun. Brought the pistol up. Agent Park stood there. Weapon drawn but pointed at the floor. Easy, Lieutenant. I'm the good guy. How do I know that? Because if I wasn't, you'd have a hole in your head instead of your gut. She holstered her weapon, showed me her badge. Keller's outside coordinating with Chicago PD. Where's Captain Callahan? So she knew. Had known all along, maybe. Getting evidence, I said. Kane's office, 4th floor. Park nodded once. Then that's where we go. Move. We took the service stairs. Narrower, darker. Each step felt like the first one all over again. My vision was starting to blur at the edges. Blood loss or shock or both. You need medical attention, Park said quietly. After. Stubborn. Navy. That got something like a smile. 4th floor, executive wing. The carpet-absorbed sound made everything too quiet. Kane's office was at the end, door standing open, light spilling out. We approached, weapons up, cleared the threshold. Reese sat at Kane's desk. Her fingers moved across the keyboard like she'd done this 1,000 times. Havoc stood guard at the door. He saw me, tail wagged once, but he didn't leave his post. Good dog. Status, Park asked. Reese didn't look up. Uploading to 3 servers, FBI headquarters, DOD Inspector General, New York Times investigative desk. Everything's encrypted and time-stamped. If we don't check in every 12 hours, it auto-releases to their entire network. Dead man's switch, I said. Learn from the best. She finally looked up, saw Park. Her hand moved toward her pocket, toward something sharp she'd taken from the crash cart. She's friendly, I said quickly. Her husband was killed investigating this same network. Park stepped forward, showed her credentials. Agent Sloan Park, FBI. My husband was David Park. Died 2 years ago in a single car accident on a clear day with perfect road conditions. Her voice stayed level, professional, but something burned underneath. I've been building a case against Voss Security ever since, but I had suspicions, not proof. Reese pulled a flash drive from the USB port, tossed it across the desk. Park caught it one-handed. 5 years of documentation, Reese said. Weapons trafficking, wire transfers, delivery manifests, serial numbers, client lists. Enough to put Voss away for 3 lifetime and take down 14 others with him. Park stared at the small device like it weighed 100 pounds. This is everything. Everything I could gather without exposing myself. The full archives are in the uploaded files. Redundant backups across 4 continents. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Hard to testify when you're officially dead. Reese stood, moved around the desk, and I needed time to map the full network. Voss doesn't operate alone. He has people in procurement, logistics, intelligence, congressional staffers. If I'd released this 2 years ago, they would have shattered, destroyed evidence, disappeared into bureaucracy. And now they know I'm alive. They're panicking, making mistakes. Reese glanced at me, like sending contractors into a civilian hospital. Park's phone buzzed. She checked the screen. Keller reports 6 suspects in custody, all carrying suppressed weapons, all employed by Voss Security Solutions. She looked up. That's federal charges. Conspiracy, attempted murder. We can hold them, make them talk. They won't talk, I said. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Professionals know how to stay quiet. Everyone talks eventually, Park replied, especially when they're looking at life without parole. A new voice came from the doorway, calm, almost friendly. Or when they're looking at something much worse than prison. We all turned. Dr. Kane stood in the hallway, but he wasn't alone. Colonel Garrett Voss stood beside him. 60 years old, silver hair perfectly styled, suit that probably cost more than my truck. He looked like a CEO, like someone who donated to children's hospitals and served on corporate boards. He also had a Sig Sauer P226 pressed against Kane's temple. Captain Callahan, Voss said pleasantly, like we'd run into each other at a coffee shop. You're looking remarkably healthy for a woman who's been dead 3 years. Reese's weapon came up smooth, but I saw the calculation happening behind her eyes. Distance, angles, Havoc's position, the civilians in adjacent offices. Let him go, Colonel, she said. I don't think I will. Dr. Kane has been quite helpful over the years. Hiding you, falsifying death certificates. I really should thank him properly before I kill him. Park's weapon was up now, too. You won't make it out of this building, Voss. There are federal agents on every floor. Voss smiled. The expression never reached his eyes. Are there, because I just walked through your perimeter, showed my DO'd contractor credentials, mentioned I was consulting on a security matter. Your people let me right through, he paused. Money buys access, Agent Park, as your late husband discovered. Park's finger moved closer to the trigger. You killed David. I eliminated a variable, just like I eliminated Team Phantom. Just like I'm about to eliminate the last few loose ends standing in this room. The evidence is already uploaded, Reese said. Her voice stayed calm, but her knuckles were white on the pistol grip. Killing us changes nothing. It changes everything, Captain. Evidence without witnesses is just data. My lawyers will challenge chain of custody, question authentication, create reasonable doubt. Voss tilted his head slightly. I've already survived 2 congressional investigations. I'll survive this too. Kane's eyes found mine. His lips moved. No sound. But I read the words, on 3. I gave the smallest nod. You made one mistake, Voss, I said. Took a half step forward. Drew his attention. Oh, enlighten me. You assumed we'd follow rules. Kane dropped. Just let his legs go out from under him. Became dead weight. Voss's weapon tracked down for a fraction of a second. Havoc hit him like a missile. 100 pounds of muscle and training and 3 years of waiting. They went down together. The Sig fired once, wide. The round punched through drywall. I had a shot, took it. The suppressed pistol coughed twice. Both rounds hit Voss center mass. He went still. Park was already moving. Kicked Voss's weapon away, dropped to check his pulse. He's alive. Barely. Havoc stood over him. Not attacking now, just making sure. Making certain. Reese pulled Kane to his feet. You okay? He nodded. Breathing hard. His hands shook. Getting too old for this. You were always too old for this, she said, but her voice was gentle. I leaned against the desk. The room tilted sideways. My legs decided they were done holding me up. Reese caught me before I hit the floor. Cord, stay with me. Did we get him? We got him. Good. My vision was tunneling, gray at the edges. That's good. Her face filled my view. Those ice blue eyes. You're bleeding through your bandages. We need to get you to surgery. Just need a minute. You don't have a minute, Lieutenant. Stay awake. That's an order. Orders, right. I was good at following orders, except when I wasn't. The darkness came up soft and quiet, like falling asleep, like letting go. The last thing I felt was Havoc's nose pressing against my hand. The last thing I heard was Reese's voice calling for Dr. Kane. Then nothing. I woke up 4 days later. Different room. Better view. The rain had stopped. November sunlight came through the windows pale and clean, made everything look new. Havoc's head rested on the edge of my bed. He lifted it when my eyes opened. Tail thumped against the floor. Hey boy, I whispered. My throat felt like I'd swallowed glass. He licked my hand. Gentle. Careful. He hasn't left your side, a voice said. Reese sat in the chair by the window. Still in scrubs but clean ones this time. Her hair was down. She looked tired, but whole. How long I managed? 4 days. You tore half your stitches. Developed sepsis. Kane had to take you back into surgery twice. She stood. Moved closer. You almost died, again. Seems to be a pattern. Break it. I would have laughed if it wouldn't have hurt. Voss or federal custody, singing like he's auditioning for the opera. Reese sat on the edge of the bed. He gave up 9 co-conspirators in the first hour, hoping for a plea deal. The DOD Inspector General has opened investigations into 14 defense contractors and 27 military personnel. Team Phantom, her expression softened, officially exonerated, all of us. The 4 who died are being recognized posthumously. Full honors. Their families are getting death benefits, VA support, everything they should have had 3 years ago. Marcus, Sarah, Rodriguez, Williams. I said their names, needed to hear them out loud. They deserved better. They got us instead, but at least now they'll be remembered properly. And you? She looked out the window, watching clouds move across November sky. The Navy wants me back, full reinstatement, promotion to commander. They're forming a new task force, military corruption, investigation, and prevention. They want me to lead it. Are you going to silence? Long enough that I thought she might not answer. I don't know, she finally said. I've been dead for 3 years, Cord. I got used to the quiet, to being invisible, to not having to make decisions that get people killed. She paused. The thought of going back into that world, you don't have to decide today. No, but soon. She turned back to me. Agent Park offered me something too. FBI consultant position. Same work, different uniform, more oversight, less operational flexibility. What do you want? She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was soft but certain. I want to make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else. I want to protect the people who serve. I want to finish what Team Phantom started. Then that's what you do. Havoc's tail thumped agreement. Reese smiled, really smiled. First genuine one I'd seen since Syria. Kane says you'll make a full recovery. 8 weeks of physical therapy. Light duty for 4 months. Then you're cleared for active service if you want it. And if I don't, then you're cleared for whatever you do want. I looked at Havoc, at this dog who'd saved my life more times than I could count, who'd found Reese when I'd given up hope, who'd proven that some bonds don't break no matter how much time passes. I think I'm done pulling triggers, I said slowly, but I'm not done serving. What are you thinking? Training, canine handlers, teaching people how to trust their dogs, how to listen when they're trying to tell you something important. I scratched behind Havoc's ears, found that spot that made his leg twitch. Maybe if I'd trusted him sooner, we could have found you 3 years ago. Reese's hand found mine, squeezed once. You found me when you were supposed to. Yeah. We sat like that for a while. No words necessary, just presence, just the knowledge that we'd survived, that the fight was over, that we could finally rest, or at least catch our breath before the next one started. 6 months later, I stood in a training facility outside Virginia Beach. Late April sun warm on my shoulders. 20 new handlers and their dogs watching as I demonstrated basic commands. Havoc performed each task with precision despite being officially retired. He loved the work, loved having a purpose. I knew the feeling. Reese visited when her schedule allowed. She'd taken the FBI consultant position, spent her weeks hunting down corruption, building cases, bringing justice to people who thought their rank or money made them untouchable. She looked happier than I'd seen her in years. Agent Park had become a friend. She'd personally arrested 12 of Voss's network. Her husband's case was officially reopened as a homicide. Justice served even if it came late. Dr. Kane retired from St. Augustine, opened a free clinic for veterans, no insurance required, no questions asked. He said he owed a debt to the soldiers he'd helped bury and resurrect. And Voss, Colonel Garrett Voss, was serving 40 years in federal prison. No parole. His company dissolved, his assets seized, his name now synonymous with betrayal and corruption. But the real victory wasn't his cage. It was what came after. New oversight for military equipment transfers, independent auditing of defense contracts, whistleblower protection strengthened, mandatory reporting requirements. Team Phantom hadn't died for nothing. We'd exposed a cancer, and the system was slowly healing. One afternoon, a black SUV pulled into the training facility lot. Reese got out, behind her Agent Park, and a woman I didn't recognize. Marine Corps uniform, lieutenant's bars. Cord Braddock, Reese called. We need to talk. I walked over, Havoc at my side like always. What's wrong? Nothing yet, but we have a situation. Reese gestured to the Marine. This is Lieutenant Sarah Morrison. Her unit found something in Afghanistan, weapons depot, American equipment with serial numbers that shouldn't exist. My stomach tightened. Another network. Different players, same pattern. Reese looked at me. Morrison reported it up the chain, got told to destroy the evidence and forget what she saw. When she refused, they started applying pressure. Threats, Park nodded. Her CO suggested she might have PTSD, recommended psychiatric evaluation. Classic intimidation tactics. Morrison spoke for the first time. Young, maybe 26, but her eyes were older. I'm not crazy, and I'm not backing down, but I can't fight this alone. They were all looking at me. I train dogs now, I said. I'm not an operator anymore. You're whatever we need you to be, Reese replied, same as always. I looked down at Havoc. He looked back, those amber eyes steady, trusting, ready. Some fights find you, and when they do, you don't get to walk away. Okay, I said, tell me everything. As the sun dipped toward the horizon as my students packed their gear and headed home, I stood with my team. Reese, Park, Morrison, Havoc. We'd been buried, erased, written out of every official record. But we'd come back, and we weren't done. The mission continued. Different uniforms, different enemies, same purpose. Havoc sat, raised his paw. That perfect salute, I saluted back. Some bonds transcend death, transcend betrayal, transcend time itself. Team Phantom was gone, but what we represented lived on. In every whistleblower who found courage to speak truth to power, in every investigation that refused to be buried, in every handler who trusted their dog when instinct said something was wrong. We'd lost good people, the best people, but their sacrifice meant something now. It meant the next soldier who found evidence of corruption wouldn't face it alone, wouldn't be silenced, wouldn't disappear. That was the real mission. Not medals or commendations or official apologies, but the promise that we'd keep fighting, keep protecting, keep serving, until every ghost found their way home, until every salute meant something, until justice wasn't just a word on a recruiting poster, but a commitment we honored every single day. Together, the way families should. We drove away as darkness fell, headlights cutting through the Virginia night, heading toward whatever came next. Havoc sat in the back, head resting on my shoulder, content. Reese drove, Park navigated. Morrison briefed us on the details of what her unit had found. And somewhere ahead, another fight waited, another truth buried under lies and threats and official denials. We were ready. We'd always been ready, because some soldiers never leave the service. They just trade one uniform for another and keep moving forward. One mission at a time, one truth at a time, one salute at a time, until the work was done. Or until we joined the brothers and sisters who'd gone before us. Either way, we'd face it standing. The way Captain Reese Callahan taught us, the way Team Phantom always had. Together, always together.